You know how to make apple pie, right?
Yes.
I don't. I eat pie. I don't make
taught.
pie. All right.
Yes.
All right. So I will go grab the camera as we are down a cameraman today, and I can't wait to take a taste of an apple pie.
Give me that sunshine, sunshine. Give me them good times, good times. Nothing but good vibes, good vibes. Give me that sunshine, sunshine.
Apple pie recipe came from a friend of mine. Her name is Diane. So shout out to Diane for this harvest apple pie recipe. I'm so thankful to have it. Since I received it over 20 years ago, we'll say, I have not changed the recipe. It's just very simple, very easy, things on hand. So let's get started. We're going to start with the sugar part of the recipe, and then we will add the apples. So I'm going to start with half a cup of brown sugar and a half a cup of white sugar. The brown sugar was tightly packed, and I'm just breaking it up here with my hands. To that, I'm going to add a quarter of a cup of flour. The apples are usually rather juicy, and this will help with thickening up that apple sauce. I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, very yummy fall flavor. Now I'll use this to stir it up. So this is all ready to go. I'm going to pour this on top of the apples when we're done slicing them up. So I'm going to set this aside. And the last thing here that I haven't used yet is lemon juice. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, and I'm going to put that in with the apples. It's going to help to keep them from browning while we do all the slicing. All right, so with this, let me slide this over. With this handy dandy apple peeler core slicer, hard to say, but
That is a mouthful.
Of course, the blah 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 blog. Wow, you sir are a mouthful.
wonderful to have. There are many different varieties out there that you can use. This happens to be a Pampered Chef variety with a stand. Sure, if we can find one.
They're on Amazon. I'll have a link to it on Amazon.
Awesome. All right. So I'll just show you how to do one, and then I'll speed it up and do the rest of them. There we go. We'll just extend it here, grab on, and spin. I will. Okay, so there's one apple. Slide that over. I'm going to cut it in half and add it to my bowl of lemon juice. Divide up these. I'm just going to divide them now. It'll be easier later. Kind of break them up a little bit. Not break up the pieces of the size, but just break them up from their sticking together. All right, and now I'm going to continue on doing the rest of these apples.
I saw her under moonlight, a flower in her hair, and didn't think she'd notice.
Okay, so we have all of our apples sliced, cored, peeled, and I have them all in the bowl. We're gonna add our sugar, give them a stir to coat them well, and then I'm gonna set this aside and make up, or grab the crust.
Hey, babe.
Yeah.
How many apples is that?
Oh, thank you. So I did 6 to 8 apples. This is actually 8 apples. The recipe calls for 6 to 8. That is going to totally be determined by the size of your pie plate. If you have an 8-inch pie plate instead of a 9-inch pie plate, you're not going to need as many apples. If you have large apples instead of small apples, you won't need as many. So it's going to be determined by your pie plate. If you have too many apples, I always go more on too many rather than not enough, because eating apples that are coated with sugar are wonderful. And I like to fill my pie plate really full and have that really beautiful, picture perfect apple pie. So I like to go with more rather than less. It's very well coated. I'm gonna set this aside and go get my, my pie crust. Okay, so I have my basic pie crust. If you caught the first part of this video, you saw where we made this pie crust. So this is the bottom layer of our apple pie. This is a 2-crust pie. So I'll walk through that when we get there. So I'm gonna take our apples that we sliced and sugared. I'm gonna fill up this pie. I'm trying not to get the edges too goopy, because I want my top layer pie crust to lay nice and stick well on there. I'll explain that in just a second. There's a lot of juice in the bottom of this pan. My apples were juicy, and the lemon juice and the apples have broken down. Lemon juice has caused the apples to break down just a little bit, so it is causing extra juice. Also, my apples were very juicy. All right, so that's looking pretty even. Grab this one that tipped off the edge here. And now I'm going to grab my top crust. So the top crust I had rolled out in the previous, or the bottom crust actually, I rolled out in the previous part 1 of the basic pie crust. So please refer back to that as to how to roll this. I folded it in quarters so that it would be easy to transport it onto this pie. And now I'm just going to unfold it as I put it on the top. I'm going to be very careful not to stretch it. Stretched dough will shrink in the oven. So there we go. Now I have a lot of excess. When you roll out the dough, you just have to estimate how big you think it's going to be. But I like the excess because then I can have it for another little grandma trick that we used to do. Yeah, so grandma used to cut off the edges here. I think every grandma does this. She cuts off the edges and then she bakes these with butter, cinnamon, and sugar. And then we got to eat them while we waited for the pie, because apple pie cooks for a good hour usually. And then we have to wait for it to cool. And grandma didn't always make apple pie on the day we were going to eat it, so it was very difficult to wait. So this became a great way to help us through. All right, this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just getting some of the edges off. So I will, like I said, bake these in the oven. Just coat them with butter, sprinkle some cinnamon and sugar, even brown sugar makes them just fabulous. All right, so at this point I have a crust that is easy to work with. This is a method that I like to use. Every chef, baker has their way of doing it. This is a double crusted pie. So I'm going to take it and fold it under. What this is going to help with is to seal the pie so you don't get as much of a mess in your oven. The pie as it bakes is going to, like I said, get juicy and you might have a mess. So I got it to look somewhat symmetrical, and now just to be simple, I'm going to take a thumb and 2 fingers and do a pinch. And I'm going to work my way around. I don't know. Some people I've seen twist it. It's truly whatever. But this makes a very good looking pie. Yeah, I like that.
Magazines will be contacting us to take pictures of our pies.
Well, I don't know about that. Okay. So now to make my pie look golden brown and an even color, some people use milk and just coat it with milk. I do not care for milk in my food. I like to make a dairy, lactose-free pie. So I'm going to use egg whites instead, and I'm just going to brush it on all over the pie, the edges and the top of the pie.
Yeah, and I think this is how Miyagi taught Daniel's son karate, right? paint the fence, paint the pie.
Paint the pie.
All in the wrist. Wrist up, down.
And now I need to cut in some steam holes for the pie. So you can do that however you want. If you want to make an actual design, you can be creative. You can make a tree that represents it with an apple. You can make they have little cutouts that are actually apples. You could do some cutout holes. I'm just gonna take a knife, again, to be simple so it's easy for you to duplicate. I'm just gonna poke some steam holes here. So there we go. I'm going to put this in the oven for, it's a preheated oven right now, or it's preheating right now. We're going to preheat it to 450 degrees, and I'm gonna bake this for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to leave the pie in the oven, turn the heat down to 350, and continue baking for about an hour. You can check it after 45 minutes and see with a cake tester or a fork, test and see how tender the apples are. You want that tester to go in smoothly as if, like I said earlier, it was applesauce. So test it, and if they're crunchy, put it in for another 5 minutes or so, and just keep testing it until your tester goes through smoothly. Yeah. So I'll be back in a bit with the finished product. There we go. Well, here we go, dude.
Yeah.
Are you ready for your pie?
I am.
All right, let's slice this up. Look at how flaky. Here we go. Look at that. You can already see how flaky this is. Isn't that something?
Yeah, that is my piece right there.
Well, no. We are trying to be conscientious of how much sugar
Okay,
we
this
don't
is my piece
take.
right here.
Okay. Did you? Okay. Well, see, I gave little guidelines here. We have to follow.
This is getting worse by the second.
Stay in your lines. Here we go.
Right, I just remember I'm a master editor, so
Ooh,
that works out pretty good.
it does. A little bit left behind, but I'll dig that out later.
Yeah. And, I mean, just came out of the oven. If you let it sit, I mean, you can eat the apple pie hot. It's always, anytime you eat these fruit pies warm, the filling will run out on you. If you let it set
Yeah.
and cool, you'll actually set up
It'll
differently.
gel.
So
Yep, you're right.
it's a little bit like that just because we've taken it out warm. And
Yes.
all right, here we go.
Here we go. My favorite part. Yeah, you're not speaking. All right, I can't get enough on my fork.
Well, you are problematic.
I know, whatevs, right? Oh, I do like warm apple pie.
Yeah. That crust is absolutely perfect. You get
It's
that
very
salty,
flaky.
flaky.
Nice balance with that salt and the sweet. We totally could have some
So
ice
good.
cream on that, but
well-
as is, this is really good.
Look, you would normally do ice cream or whipped cream, but what I like doing on any of these things where you put some time into to use good ingredients, make things with good flavors, actually taste what you're supposed to be tasting, right? I mean, enjoy the apple and the cinnamon and the flaky crust, and then put your cream and your ice cream in there. But
Yeah. We need a pic of that crust.
yeah,
Look how flaky.
right, perfect. All right, thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, everyone.
Until next time, God bless.
Mwah.